folks, Scott here with my July 2020 My Monthly Hero Kit. It is July 24th today. I just got my kit. It looks like Hero Arts is getting everything up to speed. I think they started shipping these on July 20th. It's the 24th. Here's mine. We are going to Atlantis this month. This is our 6x8 stamp set, which features a new Heroscape design. It's this reef here. So this reef and this piece, all three of those go together to create a multi-layer reef. We've got a number of other aquatic images here with, of course, a mermaid, a seahorse, a crab, some dolphin, a big sunfish, it looks like. Hello, friend, sending you oceans of love. Celebrate today. Deeply grateful for you. And some bubbles. This looks like a little water line. This kind of looks like a old statue of Triton or something. Doesn't look like he has a left arm there. That's our 6x8 stamp set. We do get 9 coordinating frame cuts. So like the building, the crab, the dolphin, the fish, seahorse, mermaid, and our statue guy. Also, there's a big die cut for our triple layer reef, and we also have one fancy edge die, which is this big die up here. That's our dies in the kit. We also get a big bag of extras with ink. These are Hero Reactive inks in Blue Hawaii, Taffy, Pool Party Splash, and Key Lime Fizz. So we get 6 sheets of this holographic glitter paper, which is just kind of amazing. 2 diamond blue, 2 teal, and 2 purple. Glitter sticker paper. Yep, that's sticker paper. Fairly thin, very kind of mylar-like. Have to be careful of that when you're taking that backing off of it. We also get coral embossing powder. Looks like we are in search of the lost city of Atlantis this month. And here we have my 10 cards. We are all on white card bases this month. Now, my first question about this kit was about this glitter paper. I wondered, how did they think we were going to use that? So that's what I played with for our first card here on a white card base. Of course, we've got our Hello Friend underwater card with all of that glitter sticker as our background. Since that is sticker paper, I peeled it off its backing and just stuck a big chunk of it down to a scrap of white cardstock. I cut that to 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And then I cut that fancy edge die from a piece of vellum. Now, I didn't cut the bottom of it first, but I laid it over and I thought, well, that's really going to take up all of that glitter sticker paper there. What if we cut the bottom of that as well? So I flipped it over and used the same die on the back of it, so it was a reverse die cut, and finished cutting that piece of vellum so that it still gave us some of that glitter cardstock back there. I ran this through my Xyron sticker maker to apply adhesive over the whole back and stuck that down to that glitter paper. And then I decided to take that water ripple stamp and stamp that all over my background here using Unicorn White Pigment ink, the Hero Arts Unicorn ink, and then embossed that with some clear embossing powder. I used the white ink so it would stick to the glitter paper, and then the clear embossing just so it would set it and give it a little shine. I also thought that helped integrate that vellum die cut with the whole background there. I did stamp our Heroscapes reef stamps. Now, I practiced these a lot just to figure out how to line them up as perfectly as possible. I've got a couple of Misties in the house here now, so I can put one stamp on one Misty and another stamp on another Misty. These are just me experimenting with getting the perfectly right placement for stamping those 3 stamps. That one's better, but still missing over here. I finally got those 3 stamps laid out. How I like them, and I stamped them on a piece of cardstock. I stamped this with the Pool Party, and then the Blue Hawaii, and then the Key Lime Fizz ink. I then used the die to cut that out. I did add a little bit more color to the reef here with my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. Little shadows here, trying to give at least a couple of colors to the plants and our shadowy reef here. I stamped that double dolphin stamp with some Pool Party ink, and then die cut that out. Did a little more detail on that with my alcohol markers. I attached both the reef and the dolphin to my background with foam tape. And then I thought our reefs needed a little more sparkle. So I took my Quickie glue pen and Vintage Platinum Distress Glitter Dust and added just a tiny little bit of glitter to the reef there. I also took my Stardust gel pen, added a little sparkle to our dolphins there. I finally then stamped this sentiment on another piece of vellum, embossed that with white embossing powder, cut that down to a nice banner, attached that over that vellum there. If I had thought about it in the beginning, I would have made this vellum a little bit wider and actually stamped the stamping on the vellum itself. But I think it helps pull that all together, knowing that this is part of the sentiment. Hello, friend. It looks like the dolphins are saying hi to each other. I did cut a plain gray mat and glued that down to my white card base. I attached my front panel with more foam tape. Hello, friend. Certainly sparkly, certainly glittery, very underwatery. Okay, I think I'm getting a feel for this stamp set now. I wanted to try and see how much depth I can create using just the stamps. No die cuts, no foam tape. And we've got our Deeply Grateful for You card. That's all basically it is. It's a one-layer card. Now, I took some light blue cardstock from my stash, and I did some ink blending on the background using the Splash ink and some Unicorn white ink. One of my favorite things I did with this kit is I took that fancy edge die and I cut it from a piece of Fun Foam. I made my own stamp. I love this. Just a little adhesive on the back and it'll stick to your MISTI or to a stamp block. You can see it in the background there. Now there's some depth for you. I don't think I've ever made a foam stamp from a die cut before, but this worked perfectly. There are a few of those water ripple stamps stamped in the background here. I think that adds a little extra depth and dimension. There's also that temple stamp stamped very lightly right down here on the bottom. I think you can see that. I stamped the Heroscapes wreath again using Splash and then Blue Hawaii. And then I stamped the third plant stamp with Versamark ink and embossed that with the Coral embossing powder. Now that was nice and shiny, but I thought it was a little flat, so I went in with an alcohol marker and just added a little bit of additional color, a little shading to our coral plants there. I did a little bit of extra alcohol shading in the reef as well. I stamped the dolphins in the Pool Party ink and the bubbles in the Pool Party ink. I stamped the crab using soft granite Hero Arts ink, and then the fish and the seahorse using reactive sea glass ink. I then just put a simple mask over my reef and used my sheer shimmer spritz and gave the background here a nice shimmer of glitter. I stamped the sentiment again using the Blue Hawaii ink. I cut this down with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, created a little frame for that with those same dies using a piece of iridescent blue cardstock from my stash. I glued those down to a white card base, and then for a little extra bubble, I glued a few sequins, orange sequins. I thought they came really close to the feel of those shiny coral plants all over our reef there. Deeply grateful for you. Okay, let's use that fancy edge die as it was intended to be used. On my next card, we have the Sending You Oceans of Love card. I took 2 pieces of cardstock. On one piece of the cardstock, I distress inked from the top down using some Broken China Distress Oxide ink. I splattered a little water on that and blotted it off for my little bubbles there. I stamped the Water Ripples stamp going across here using the Blue Hawaii ink. And I stamped the sentiment on top there using that same Sea Glass Reactive ink. Nice and dark. I think that ink went really well with all the blues in this kit. I colored the front piece using my Mermaid Lagoon Distress Oxide spray and some water and a little sea foam shimmer spray that we got in the June of 2018 kit. I still have a decent amount of that left. That's what's giving us our little green spots and everything there. After I colored that cardstock, I die cut the fancy edge die from the top of that. I stamped our Heroscapes Reef here, again using Pool Party ink and Blue Hawaii ink, and then I selectively inked up the third stamp. This is our Taffy from the kit. This is Creamsicle Reactive ink, and these two are that great Sea Glass Reactive ink as well. That all went well. It gives us a little color down there. I stamped our Double Dolphin and our Single Dolphin and thought I needed some more fish. I dug out the March of 19, my monthly hero kit. Lots and lots of fishes. I grabbed these little fish and these fish up here and our little turtle and added those in our background here. All of the fish are stamped using, again, that soft granite Hero Arts ink. Finally, I added a few of the blue bubbles that came in one of our Hero Art kits last year to give us our last little touch of dimension on an otherwise flat card. Those 2 pieces of cardstock are glued together and cut down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 and then glued down to our white cardstock for a little bit of a white frame around there, sending you oceans of love. This feels like an ocean. This feels like plenty of fish in the ocean. Now we had that Poseidon stamp, or Neptune, or whoever you want to call it, down here that was missing an arm. I realize this is all supposed to be about the ruins of Atlantis, but I thought I might be able to restore this poor fellow's arm. So for card number 4, we've got a You Rule card with Poseidon standing atop his reef there, gesturing to the entire ocean. Again, I took a piece of my light blue cardstock and I stamped that fancy edge stamp right there in the center, just inked up the top of that, stamped it right there down the center of that. And then I made a little stencil this month. I don't know why. I didn't like the water stencil that I had before because I thought it was more of a surface of the water, and I wanted something that would be a little more underwater for us here. Cut that out with my Silhouette. Nice little simple, very ripply. I did put that stencil on my cardstock here and ink blended some Pool Party through that for the little ripples in the background there. Now this reef he's standing on top of is actually both sides of our number 1 reef stamp here. So you can see that right down the center there is this side of the stamp. And then I matched up the other edge on this side and joined them together. And once I stamped both of them, I of course had to cover over this plant hole here and I've needed to blend the seam between the two of them. So I just use a little finger dauber in the same ink and go over the top of all of that, trying to stay away from the edges. And then I just use some Post-it tape to mask out a little rocky outcropping in the front there. And I ink blended that down with some Seedless Preserves Distress ink and worked it on down to some Black Soot Distress ink at the bottom. So that goes out to total black there. I stamped our Poseidon stamp on the top here, also using the Blue Hawaii ink. And then I added his arm with one of these little micro applicator brushes. These are great, and you can dab them right into your ink pad. And I actually use that to draw my little Poseidon arm back on. I think it came out pretty good. It looks like it matches his right arm. After I was happy with adding his arm there, I did add a little bit of gold ink on top. I just, again, used an applicator brush and some of my Delicata gold glitz ink and very lightly rubbed a little of that gold ink on top of our Poseidon figure here. I thought he could use a little bit of color. And then I did go in with my finest white gel pen and added a little bit of definition to him. You can see that just a touch. When I thought about this card, I thought of this sentiment. I knew we had this sentiment. This is from last year's August kit, that great medieval kit. I knew we had that "You Rule" sentiment in that kit. So I grabbed that, stamped that with Versamark ink, embossed that with white embossing powder. I thought we could get away with the Old English type font here because, I mean, you can't get much more Old English than Atlantis, can you? This is cut to 2 3/4 inches by 4 1/8 inch. It's added to a thin white mat. I then did add it to some of that purple glitter paper for another mat, and then a thicker mat of black behind that, down to my white cardstock. You Rule, Poseidon Rules, or Neptune, or if you're a Disney fan, King Triton. Of course, we have a mermaid stamp in our Underwater Atlantis kit. For card number 5, we've got You're Legendary, with our lovely little mermaid there, highlighted by some sunny dapples reaching down through the water. You're Legendary. I love this. I think I already have a sitting down mermaid stamp from an earlier My Monthly Hero kit. I was kind of hoping for a mermaid that was actually swimming, but nope, she's sitting down. I die cut a piece of that light blue cardstock using a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I did some ink blending on the back of that with Blue Hawaii and a little bit of splash ink from the kit. I stamped our little pillars over here, which are actually just our temple stamp upside down. I stamped those using the soft granite ink. I stamped a couple sets of bubbles, again using this soft granite ink. Okay, my background was all stamped. I decided where I wanted my mermaid to be, and I stamped her with some unicorn white pigment ink. After that pigment ink dried, I cut a little mask for her. Didn't have to cut her hair, but I cut a mask for her, the bottom part of her, and put the mask over the white unicorn ink. Then I could stamp the right side of the reef. I just masked off the left side of the reef and inked up this side of the reef using the Blue Hawaii ink. I decided I needed to stamp a plant or two to cover up the missing plant here. I then colored both of the plants and my mermaid using my colored pencils, and I fussy cut the 2 plants out and glued them into their place. I thought one looked lonely. I thought the second one helped those pillars and the reef blend together. I did take a little bit of a dark green gel pen and added some little scales in her tail there, and I of course took my Stardust glitter pen and added some sparkle and shine in her hair and on her tail. There she goes. Look at her. She almost lights up there. I used Post-it tape to mask off our little sunbeams over here and blended those with unicorn ink. I then die cut a nice blue glitter frame for this with my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle dies. I did print this sentiment using my piggyback printing method and the Dream State font. I then glued my colored panel and my frame down to my card base. I think this sentiment would work for lots of people. I like this so much. This is my little art piece for the month. Okay, I'm starting to get a little waterlogged here. For my next card, we just play with some fishes. We've got a best fishes card, a little pun for you, a lot of white space for you. I simply stamped that. That's a long-nosed sunfish. That's our fish stamp in this kit. She's over here in this card already. I stamped our sunfish using grape slush, Blue Hawaii, green apple, lemon drop, creamsicle, and fruit punch Hero Hues reactive inks, just straight across the front of my card base. I did print this sentiment using my Silhouette software and the Freebooter script and the Border Bits font. I really like those. I don't know how I found them. I included them in this fun little sentiment. I really like the formal cursive fancy writing on an otherwise a punny card. Best fishes. For a final touch, I added little gold stars on all of our fishes right there where their eyes are. I thought that gave them a nice little touch of dimension, and it shows you that these are the best fishes. They all have gold stars. We have that one sentiment in our set this month that I thought was a little odd. It's the Celebrate Today sentiment. I thought that was a little odd in a kit all about an ancient and gone civilization. So I may have gotten a little philosophical here, but for card number 7, we've got Celebrate Today, Learn from the Past. Oh, all of a sudden we got very deep. No pun intended. This is a piece of white cardstock, ink blended with a little bit of broken china distress oxide ink. I stamped our fancy edge foam stamp and then the pillars from our tempo stamp on the bottom here using soft granite ink. Just stamped these a couple more times than I stamped that background. I stamped all of the dolphins using the soft granite ink. Just stamped them many times to get them much darker than the rest. I did stamp our water ripple across the middle here. I stamped our sentiment here using the blue Hawaii ink, and then I sent this through my printer to print the Learn from the Past. That is in the American typewriter font. I die cut our inked up piece with a Spellbinder decal edge die and ink blended the edges a little bit with some more blue Hawaii ink. I then took a piece of parchment paper, 3 3/4 by 5 inches, crumpled it up many times, then spread it out flat. I took some of my walnut stain distress ink and some antique linen and rubbed that over all of my crinkles and creases. I also took that last little bit of leftover broken china ink on my pad and rubbed a little of the blue into that background piece too, just to bring the blue to the background. I distressed the edges up a little bit, glued that down to my white card base, and then attached my stamp panel on top with some foam tape. Celebrate Today, Learn from the Past. I can actually think of a few instances where I could use this card. Okay, we also have that little crab in our stamp set that I thought I could put to good purpose. For my next card here, we've got Your Crabulous, with a little tower of all of our crabs together. I mean, crabs always come in a crowd, don't they? I stamped all our crabs here with the help of my Misty stamp positioner. We've got Fired Brick Distress Oxide, Candy Apple Distress Oxide. This is the Fruit Punch Hero Hues Reactive. This is Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide. This is the Taffy Hero Hues Reactive, followed by the Tattered Rose Distress Oxide ink. I thought those 6 inks went pretty well together. I kind of think of this as the 6 stages of cooking when you're boiling your crabs. There is, of course, more to this. Your Crabulous and Clawsome. I know plenty of people who are both crabulous and clawsome. Of course, I will never leave a pun unsaid. I printed those sentiments on this card using the Henny Penny font. Crabulous and clawsome. I die cut my stamped piece with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I matted that on a piece of dark red cardstock down to my white card base. You're crabulous. This is fun. This makes me giggle. Okay, I have used every stamp in this stamp set now, which is always my goal with these 10 cards. I've used all the sentiments, I've used all the fishes, I've used all of the... I've even used stamps that were not part of this stamp set. I made my own stamps. So I was looking around for some other sentiment that might mean something in an underwater setting like this. This is what I came up with. Our next card is Explore the Unknown. which makes perfect sense to me and seems like a great sentiment on a card like this. Again, there's just 2 layers of this. I took a piece of plain blue cardstock. I die cut that with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I stenciled some of my water ripple stencil on that using my unicorn white ink, and then I did take some of that sheer shimmer mist and spray that to give some nice glitter to that far away ocean. I then die cut another piece of cardstock with that same Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I ink blended from the bottom to the top using blue Hawaii ink, and then I stamped our reef again using the splash ink and the blue Hawaii ink. I then stamped our third stamp using that sea glass reactive ink. I really like that reef with all of the plants in dark green and blue colors. It feels a little bit more realistic to me. I think everything under the sea is tinted in different colors. I did stamp our little temple stamp here using soft granite ink. We do have that double dolphin stamp up there, again in the soft granite ink. And our little crab comes back to play. He's stamped again in that sea glass ink as well. I did stamp one set of those bubbles over here in white. And then I die cut that piece with our fancy edge die and did a little ink blending on the edges using some pumice stone distress ink. Just a little extra graying on those edges. I did send this through my printer to print this sentiment. This is in the copper plate font. I thought that worked very nicely. I did add some of my Stardust glitter pen in little lines of bubbles there in the bottom part of our cardstock. We gotta spread that glitter around. I glued both of those pieces together, then down to a black mat, and then down to my white card base. Explore the unknown is certainly a perfect sentiment for anybody embarking on a new venture of any kind. So that brings us to our last card. My fingertips are definitely getting wrinkly from being in the water for so long. And I was trying to think of smaller vignettes to feature our stamp set in. When I came up with this idea, our last card on a white card base is a shaker card. Maria Diem. Maria Diem? What? Are through our little snorkeling goggles as we're swimming through the ruins. I love how those little beads move around in there. What is Maria Diem, you say? When I figured this one out, I think I woke up the neighbors on all 4 sides of me. Maria Diem actually means seize the day. There's a meta pun if I ever heard of it. With our nice little snorkeling goggles. Oh, I really love this. So I dove into my silhouette and created this little goggle frame and cut that out on my silhouette as well. I'll make that file available to anybody who wants it. If you've got a silhouette and you'd like this fun little goggle file, drop me an email at cardcutups@gmail.com and I'll send you a copy of this file. I cut that 3 times from some of that shimmer black cardstock and glued those all together. Glued a piece of acetate cut to size on the back of that. So I did print these first, Maria Diem and Seize the Day. I printed those using the Dream State font again. Maria Diem, Seize the Day. Then I traced my little goggles on a piece of masking paper and fussy cut that. Now I have a card size mask that I can put on my card front and ink blend directly on the card front. I ink blended that with the splash, a little bit of the pool party ink there. And then I stamped our foam stamp in the background using soft granite. I did stamp the 2 edges of our first reef die. Here's those little plants from the top of the left and our little reef from the top of the right. I stamped this side using some Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink, so that looks like it's really right in front of you. I've got our little fish over here, the 3 dolphins coming down, a number of bubbles. There's our little mermaid swimming right away. She's kind of, if you don't look close, you'll miss her. Now, I got these nice little dapples of light coming through the water simply by using a white eraser on the ink and erasing some of that ink away. It's very subtle, but I do think it is effective. Of course, one of the best things is when you can peel up your masking paper and see the absolutely perfectly shaped inking that you've done on the front of your card. Originally, I was just going to glue my goggles down to my card front and call it a card, but then I realized that these little Darice double-sided adhesive strips were actually the perfect width to go behind this goggle frame. So when I found that out, I was like, okay, well, I have to make it a shaker card now. And of course, I dug out of my stash some of these. These are little micro beads, clear micro beads. I don't think I've ever used them before, and I just think it's kind of fascinating the way they move around. They kind of feel like a sea creature to me, or the water moving, or just the simple fact that they're round and they roll around so easily. I just thought that was so much fun. I did try to put some of these beads on the card base and then put my goggles over the top of that, but those beads roll anywhere, unless it's, even if it's perfectly flat, those beads are going to roll. So in order to get my shaker bits inside of here, I just took an old piece of adhesive backing. This is from Scrapbook Adhesives, probably foam squares. I took a piece of this and just made a little bitty tiny funnel out of it. And I tucked that under the right end of our goggles here. So as I lined it up and placed it on the card from left to right, I could capture that last little bit of our funnel in the right side, turn it up on its edge, pour in those micro beads, pull out the funnel, and stick that edge down. It worked great, and I didn't even get little bitty micro beads all over the floor. Maria Diem. Seize the day. I love this card. I love the idea of the goggles there. I will probably use that file many, many times over the years to come. That's our 10 cards, 1 kit from the My Monthly Hero July 2020 kit. Now, I admit there were a few moments in this process where I was concerned that I'd be able to come up with 10 different cards, but I think we've got a nice variety going here. We have some truly useful sentiments, a few puns as well. I just wish I knew more oceanographers. I'm really thrilled with that foam stamp I made from the Fancy Edges die. I will keep that. I really like those dolphin. That Heroscapes Reef is actually quite beautiful, and even that water ripple stamp is very versatile and quite useful. This kit is still available at Hero Arts if I've managed to spark your imagination or give you a few different ideas. Please use my links in the description down below if you do go shopping at Hero Arts. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me here today. I hope you enjoyed these cards. Let me know which ones are your favorite. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked this. It helps tell YouTube to share this video with other like-minded people. I continue to send you and yours health and happiness. Please be safe. Please be careful. Please remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't go swimming immediately after eating. And as usual, I send you health and happy crafting. If you'd like more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.